Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a recent addition to the Criterion collection just this past Tuesday, February 1st. This is Douglas Sirk's 1956 melodrama Written on the Wind with Rock Hudson and Dorothy Malone, Robert Stack, Lauren Bacall. Highly anticipated movie for me and for all Douglas Sirk fans. And I'd say right off the bat, for those who wonder what does it look like, because this is a film very dependent on its expressive use of color. And I can say right off the bat, this new 2K restoration looked absolutely fabulous. I can't imagine a 4K being much better than the way this film looks today on this Criterion release. And it's a story. It's probably the most over-the-top melodrama that Douglas Sirk ever made. In Hollywood, he made a series of over-the-top melodramas in an era when melodrama was familiar to audiences. Audiences liked melodramas, and I mean, even film noir is full of melodrama. But I don't think anybody ever took it to the heights that Douglas Sirk did. Vincent Minnelli, somewhat in some of his films in the 1950s, but Sirk just immersed himself, his cast, and his audience in just over-the-top melodrama. And this is the story of wealthy children, Robert Stack being the son of a wealthy oil magnate, and Dorothy Malone, who you can see down here in the corner, is his youngest sister. They've grown up with Rock Hudson from the time they were children. He was from the poor side of the tracks. His father was a lifetime friend of the rich oil tycoon who was in frail health and is very concerned with how his two children are turning out. And Rock Hudson's playing the best friend of both of them, having virtually grown up as a brother to them. But he has his feet on the ground. He is dependable. He is the geologist of this oil empire. And we have and then we have Lauren Bacall entering this quartet. She becomes the wife of Robert Stack. He is an alcoholic, but he gives up the booze. He tries to live a normal, productive life under her influence. But can they make things right? Is it even possible? Is it? Can these people really change? Because they are sort of like the gods. They are the rich people in the United States, and I would assume in most advanced capitalist systems, the rich people are our gods. They have everything we could want. And of course, there is this social criticism that sort of seeps into his movies, the conformity in the 1950s, the materialism of it. How do we live our lives? What do we value? Do we value the inauthenticness of possessions, or do we try to become a better human being? This is a common theme throughout Douglas Sirk's melodramas. And what makes Written on the Wind so memorable is its expressive use of color. This is color to the max. Everything in it, every color means something. In the beginning scene, we see a yellow sports car driven by a drunken man driving through a town which is surrounded by giant oil derricks. And then we see him go in a house, we see him come back, we hear a shot fired, we see somebody come out of the house and fall to the ground, and then we go back in time and we see everything that leads up to this point. The sort of inevitability of events leading up to this opening sequence, and he's driving this yellow sports car, expressive of his sense of his own masculine identity, and his sister, who desires Rock Hudson, will do anything to get him, will lie. and is living what in the 1950s would be called living the life of a tramp, as she is described by one of the townspeople to her father. So we see these oil derricks all around, and it's a constant kind of oppressive sense of wealth, of being surrounded by these oil derricks. And but we also have, another element of the story is the river. And this is where, as children, these two gods of melodrama and Rock Hudson, from the wrong side of the tracks, they grew up and they constantly refer to the river. And when they were children, and they were innocent, and they felt this kind of closeness that they don't feel anymore. They're just going through the motions of it. Things have not worked out. Let's go back and have a picnic at the river. Why have we come so far from it? So there is this sense of sadness in Written on the Wind, and in all Douglas Sirk's films. I'm talking about gods, and they're really a sense of, you get the sense of Greek drama. I happen to be doing a read-along reading of Greek dramas with a Wuthering Heights blog, and so I read Prometheus Bound in the afternoon, and then and then I watched Written on the Wind that night, and boy, I tell you, the full force of mythology of the gods, because the gods in Greek mythology, they had all kinds of power, but they also had all the frailties that human beings had times 10. So that you get that here, I think, in Sirk's dramas, but in particular in Written on the Wind. And Written on the Wind was made from a best-selling novel by Robert Wilder, and the screenwriter George Zuckerman had worked with Sirk on The Tarnished Angels, which was an adaptation of William Faulkner's Pylon, with Stack and Malone and Hudson. Now, the performances by Malone and Stack are performances that probably will not satisfy modern viewers, in the sense that this is exaggerated acting. This is not what I read the review of Written on the Wind Contemporaneous by Bosley Crowther, who is the longtime film critic of the New York Times, and he thought these performances were absolutely absurd. Ironically enough, both Stack and Malone were nominated for Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actors, and Malone won. She won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for that year. But they're eligible for this view of being absurd. So we see them, and we understand that. We understand that this is artifice. This is not reality. It's not meant to be reality. But if you give yourself up to this unreality, Written on the Wind, like many of Sirk's films, have a power and like I say, a sadness to them that can be very overwhelming. The ending of Imitation of Life. There's so many moments in his films where he comes through the other side, because Sirk was a highly educated, cultured man. He understood he was doing melodrama, and his intention was, this is what the audiences want. We'll take it to the max. Let's see what's there. Let's see what comes out the other side. And for me and for many of Douglas Sirk's fans, there's a lot of truth that comes out of the other side of this extreme sense of melodrama. This one disappointment for this release is that it's kind of short on extras. We do get a 2008 documentary in which we get, amongst which we get some archival interviews with Stack and Malone and Rock Hudson. I think it's the only time I've ever seen Rock Hudson talk about Douglas Sirk, who was sort of his mentor. He plays a small part as a soda jerk in one of his early films, and got a lot of attention for it. And then Sirk and used Hudson and helped develop him into a star. And of course, Robert Stack and Dorothy Malone had great admiration for Cirque and his gentlemanly ways and the way he was able to get such indelible performances out of him. And the screenwriter George Zuckerman is also interviewed. These interviews sound like they're maybe from the 1970s. Zuckerman has a stack of screenplays. He said, "Come back, George, or come back, Douglas, and we'll make some more movies together," because Cirque would make, I think, 4 or 5 more movies in Hollywood. And after Imitation of Life, only 3 years after Written on the Wind, he leaves Hollywood at the height of his commercial success, and I would say also critical success, and retires. And he was not that old, and he never made another movie. I think he did do stage work. He started out as a stage director. And we also get a brand new interview, and this is with Patricia White, and she talks about melodrama and Cirque's regard for it, and some of the performances. We also get a essay by Blair McClendon, and this is on this is the fold out that comes with it. So it's basically the cover art of the physical release. And on the back side, we get a essay, a really good essay. This is by Blair McClendon, and of course, very small, very difficult to read. But I remembered that you can read these essays that come with these physical releases at Criterion.com. If you click on current, you can read it and bring the font up as large as you need. And I needed pretty large. So this is a real good, I highly recommend this one. And I thought I'd close with a quote from Douglas Sirk, who was really articulate in analyzing his own work in these melodramas of the 1950s. And this is quoted in the essay, and he says that time, he's referring to his time in Hollywood, especially in the 1950s, was the twilight of the gods for drama, which necessitated the belief in guilt and in a higher order. This absolutely cruel didactic is impossible, unacceptable for us moderns, but melodrama has kept it. Okay, so thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen to me. I do very much appreciate it. The comments are welcome. You guys take care.